is Mind Shift Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we are looking at dowry, to pay or not to pay. Martin Dungo is sending me an SMS. Earlier on, I had played the song by Newsboys, Jesus Paid It All. And Martin Dungo is asking me, you want to talk to us about dowry and you're playing for us a song that says Jesus paid it all? Yes, for your sins, not for your dowry. This morning, we get to hang out with Silas Girinya, who's a psychologist and a counselor. Silas, how are you doing?
Very well, very well. How are you this morning?
I'm very fine. Jesus paid it all, my friend.
That's interesting. When I heard the song,
yes,
I was also wondering, what is the meaning of this? Are you saying that it's all paid, so we go ahead?
Wow, karibu sana. We were also supposed to hang out with Simon Bevy, but I think he's having some issues. He's not able to connect. We are hopeful that as we continue, maybe he will be able to connect. So, Silas, it's just me and you, and I want us to get right into it. One of the first things I was wondering, Silas, is this dowry thing. First of all, is it biblical? I think a lot of people ask that question.
It depends on where you're looking for your evidence.
Yes.
If you look at the Old Testament, yes, you'll realize that it is something that was actually required.
Mm-hmm.
But then I see also a difference between Jacob and Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Isaac goes to marry, he basically says that when he narrates his story, of course, with the father-in-law just basically gives him the wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so he didn't take a lot of time for him to pay this, pay the other thing. He just gave them very few gifts that he carried with him, and he went with the wife.
Yeah.
But then the case of Jacob is a bit different.
Yes.
Because we see him paying really a lot. Yes. So biblically, from the Old Testament, yes, partly yes, and partly no. Mm-hmm. But in the New Testament, I don't find any place where dowry is mentioned. Okay. Because Jesus, when he was speaking to the disciples at some point, and he actually said to them that he who marries a woman or a wife, it means this relationship is permanent. Mm-hmm. The guys started complaining and started asking who can manage this then? Mm-hmm. Who is able to do this then? And Jesus begins to talk about marriage, and he doesn't tell them that before you marry, you need, first of all, to pay the dowry. Mm-hmm. It basically means when a woman and a man meet and they decide to marry, they leave their families, they stay together forever.
Okay.
So dowry in the New Testament is not emphasized,
mm-hmm.
and probably something that we need to look into.
Okay. You know, it's usually said that if you don't know the purpose of something, then abuse is inevitable. What was and what is the purpose of dowry? Why do the men have to pay something? What's the purpose of that? What's the reasoning behind that?
Now, I think I will look at it this way, that there are different perspectives to this. Mm-hmm. It depends on what community are you looking at.
Okay.
Because, for example, if you're looking at Zambia, actually, some part of Zambia, you realize that it is women who marry men. Mm. And so that means it is actually the women who pay the dowry.
Yeah.
Some places in India, you realize that it is men who marry women, but at the end of it all, it is women who pay the dowry price. Mm-hmm. But then if we look at our context here in Kenya, traditionally we know that it's men who marry women, even mm-hmm. though I've seen some communities where women marry other women, not in the context that
yes.
we look at it today.
Yes.
But probably where you don't have children, and so you decide to marry someone who can actually bear children for you. Mm-hmm. We have seen that happening in Kamba community. I've seen it in some part in Meru, yeah. and other parts of our community. However, looking traditionally, I think dowry was meant for something really very important, mm-hmm. because looking at the traditional society, you will realize that it was a symbol of unity to unify the both families that mm-hmm. are married. Mm-hmm. Because for them, marriage was not basically about just a man marrying a woman. It was a community marrying another community.
Yeah.
It was a family actually marrying another family. And therefore, it was to unify the two families. Mm-hmm. But also at the same time, remember young girls then, they were actually the ones working for the family. So they would go to the shamba and farm and do all that. They are said here and there at home to provide some labor. And so the man who was taking that laborer needed to pay some sense of compensation
yes.
To the family, but not really like it was exaggerated as it is today, but it's just something to appreciate the parents. That's what would happen. And again, another concept I think I found is that it would give us a parent a sense of accomplishment also, or status in the society, whereby you have been given dowry, so you have sold. Actually, that's the word. If you translate directly, you have sold your wife, I mean your child, your daughter, and so it was a sense of you have sold your daughter in the right way, and therefore it gave you a sense of status. But also something else that has been coming over time. It looks like a commercial. It has a commercial purpose.
Yes.
And commercial purpose means is where traditionally, for example, in our society, the more girls you have, then the more wealthy you become, because you're going to get more cows and all that. So people would look forward purposely for that, and at times even forget the unifying factor that we spoke about.
Okay.
But also, it's unfortunate that also it has become a means of investment for most families right now.
Yeah.
And again, there's another simple aspect. Maybe, again, it was pain to chase the jokers away.
Yeah.
Now, the question is,
I like that
why is it that is the men who are doing this?
Yeah.
Now, that's controversial. That is controversial. Traditionally, yes. If actually I'm taking your laborer and you're making me compensate for that because you're transferring laborer from one home to the other, then probably you can understand that concept.
Okay.
But right now, if you look at the family, you realize that a young man just graduating from the university is struggling even to get a proper job. But then he has met a girl that he really, really loves. And he doesn't feel like he wants to wait for long because he's found the soulmate.
Yeah.
And so want to go ahead and marry, but then it becomes a burden that you have to pay the dowry. So it's something that I think we need to figure out. I have had conversations like I have done dowry negotiations,
yes.
For my friends and my family people. And I can tell you, I've had statement like we have educated our daughter.
Exactly.
And I remember in one occasion I became very controversial. So I asked, but we have also educated our son, And when I brought about that idea, there was a bit of controversy here and there. But anyway, ultimately we paid what we were supposed to pay. Negotiated really, like we negotiated very well. What we paid, I think, was somehow something that was fair. But yes, it's a big challenge in the society today.
I love that aspect you've brought in because, it seems in this modern day culture for some parents, that's the opportunity to cash in, and so you have these ridiculous requests that are being made. I'll never forget a story I was told, whether it was fictitious to bring across a point or whether it was real, I'm not sure. But the story goes that this gentleman had gone for dowry negotiations and he had his elders with him, the uncles were going to negotiate on his behalf, and so they're there. And the thing begins, and they say they want 1 million shillings. I don't know how many number of cows and what. I mean, the request was way out there. This is back in the day. And the uncles try to negotiate like you did, but they're not making any headway. And as much as the young man who's seeking for a hand in marriage here is not supposed to talk, he thought, let me say something because now it seems like we are not getting anywhere. And he says, okay, tell me again, what do you want? You want this, you want this, you want this. Okay, if I give you this, will you ask for anything else? And the man said, no, if you give us this, we'll be okay. And he told them to quantify everything, and he gave them a check. And they finished the ceremony well, and they said, now you can marry. And when the ceremony was being finished, he looked at his father-in-law-to-be, and he says, from this day on, just know I've bought your daughter. You don't call her, you don't come looking for her. She's now my personal property because I've paid a hefty price for her. She is now mine. I'm the one who decides where she can go, who she can talk to, what she can do. Whether it's fictitious or not, I don't know. But I think it brings across that point. I don't know what your thoughts are on parents who want to cash in big time. Payday is here. Dowry lazima mtalipa na mtalipa hii na hii na hii, otherwise we are not having a wedding.
Okay. It's unfortunate for that young man.
Yes, it is.
It's true. That concept is out there, and there are people who actually look at it like they are buying. I don't know. Which community do you come from? Maybe I ask.
I come from Western Kenya.
Western Kenya.
Yes.
So what is the direct translation of dowry? Like paying the dowry?
Imagine I have no idea. My father is watching. My father, Mr. Okumu, save your son. He is being asked questions here he doesn't understand. SMS me, my dad, and tell me what we call that negotiation in Luya. I have no idea.
Okay. Now, where I come from, it's basically buying, you're paying. You know, you're paying, you are selling actually. Like the father will say, I'm selling. Really? Meaning, I am selling my daughter.
Really?
Literally, yes. That's what it means. I've also realized even in Kikuyu, I tried to check and I realized the same definition. So I am selling. So if we look at it like I am selling, therefore it is actually a serious negotiation. It's a serious business deal. And therefore I'm looking forward to that moment as a parent where I will negotiate and sell my daughter. And if that is the case, then you see the young man who understands only love language, like I love this woman, and you know, I'm marrying her, you know, we would definitely feel like I am buying her. And therefore, you know, this can open doors to many other things. For example, there are some statistics that have been done so far. And actually it's very clear in some societies, like in India, there are many women who have been killed simply because they are not able to pay the dowry.
What?
Yes, that really is happening. I have seen some also places in China whereby they have to kill girls because it means it's a burden. They have to pay a lot of dowry. If you have 10 of them, so you're going to pay a lot of dowry. That basically will make you poor. And so you end up killing the girl or even aborting sometimes when they notice this is a girl. So of course that commercializes a woman. A woman looks like a commodity and therefore you can go and buy. And so once I have bought as this young man, then this is my property. So it lowers the dignity of a woman and becomes like just a mere property. So if I have a property, I can choose what to do with my property, by the way. So I can beat it up. I can do all manner of things because I bought you. It also, you know, brings in a concept whereby I was bought. This is now a woman. I was bought. And therefore it means I cannot go back home because probably my father, my mother ate the dowry. So they cannot reimburse, you know? And so ultimately, it's like, because they cannot refund, it means I have to stay here. So even sometimes when they are going through violence or some domestic violence, you notice that they will stay in that family, they will stick there because they cannot go back home. So these concepts are not really very good concepts because again, I can make you pay for my money. I paid for you, so ultimately I'll make you make sure you pay back. And this is a young man telling the young woman. But also it can bring, remember, traditionally, this was to bring the unity between the two families, or at times between the two communities. And so the moment I pay that, I gave you a check, then it means me and you are done. I have bought, like, for example, if you go to a shopkeeper right now, or to a supermarket, you give them your money and you get your commodity, it's done. Like, you don't go back to ask, how is that shopkeeper doing? It's the conversation is over. It's a transaction. And so even the relationship itself becomes very transactional. So it loses that aspect of unifying, that aspect of allowing two families to get cemented so that they can know each other much more. So that is what is lost. The element that is lost if we look at Dowry in that case.
You know, an old man friend of mine told me, you never finish paying the dowry. You're never supposed to finish paying it because it is supposed to cement the two families together. So you always go back and leave something because, you know, there's a relationship here. Ukilipa yote umalize utapotea. But you always have to feel like I still have to maintain this relationship. I need to give something. But I want to ask you something else, because there's the other side to that coin whereby you give the dowry as showing that there's value in this woman. That because I love her, because I appreciate her, because she's valuable. In fact, I was reading something, I don't know whether I agree with it or not, and somebody was saying, even Adam paid something for Eve. Hata Adam alilipa Mungu dowry, alipeana ribi yake, ndio bibi akakuja. So you always have to give something, because when you give something, then you value what you receive, as opposed to receiving something for free. People don't value free things, and hence, you have to give something. There has to be a form of dowry, whether it is money, whether it is the animal, something to show that you value what you're receiving. Can you talk to us about that side of the coin?
Okay. If you look at it that way, and that is the understanding of the young man who is marrying, I think it's a good perspective.
Okay.
Because the thing here is, I really value this lady so much, and I want to marry her, so I can pay anything for her. Like I can give anything for her. But you see, when I'm doing that, I'm looking at it like a gift. It's basically like an exchange of gift. Like
Not
I'm
a payment.
giving gift for this gift that I've been given myself.
Yes.
So if I look at it that way, I can assure you as a young man, you'll be happy to pay actually. But again, we are trying to imagine of situations where people do not look at it that way. So for them, it's like, I am just young, I've just begun life. Why are you asking for this much money?
Yeah.
And again, yes, it's important to keep paying the dowry. But again, how much? You know, like if we agree, for example, at the beginning, we are paying 1 billion or 1 million. So it means then my target is to be able to get to that. The moment I get to the full payment, I am done, you know. But maybe if you look at it like a gift, you know, it means I'm traveling home to my in-laws today.
Yeah.
So I will carry with me something, because traditionally you cannot visit someone empty-handed, even if it's your friends. Literally, if you visit them, you would rather even carry you know, some 2 bananas or 3 bananas, just for the children and all that.
Yeah.
Now, these days, sometimes we carry the sweets and everything else.
Yes.
So, like, you cannot visit someone without something. So, these are your in-laws, people that you really value, people who have given you a precious person in your life. So, the moment you're going there, you carry something. It wasn't like to be quantified all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you could go with a goat. Some other times you can go with a kilo of meat or something. You know, but that is part of paying, part of being united, part of getting back to that family so that you keep the relationship going.
Okay.
And again, it was also very helpful because you don't take a wife and then you just start life alone. So we need both families. We need both in-laws from both sides. So if I keep on coming back and paying something and giving something, it means also there is that sense of responsibility that I feel on my side as a young man. So I feel like I am responsible taking care of this girl, because I have to go back to face our father.
Okay.
So what if I face our father and then she reports me that I've been violating her? What is that likely to be? So somehow it enables you to get more responsible in the process.
Okay. I'm just wondering, and we'll look at this shortly, looking at how we do life today and how we live life today, and some of the reasons we've stated here concerning why people used to pay dowry, is it still relevant today? We are so detached as communities, even as families. You know, everybody seems to be living in their own gated community. That community we had back in the day, even the two families coming together, you know, some people, they only saw their father-in-law once or twice. It's been 20 years since you've been married, and, you know, that relationship, haikuenda mahali. So is this dowry thing still relevant today? We'll look at that shortly. Some comments coming through. This one says, in our community, we are a bit kind. Parents request for teenage cow and a bull and a calf to signify fertility and continuity of life. Okay, good one there. Somebody is asking, is there a difference between dowry and bride price? And somebody else is saying, I thought dowry ni ile the women pay kama in India, and where the man is the one paying is what we call bride price. Is there a difference between the two, or it depends on the culture?
I think that depends on the culture. I would rather say it's one and the same thing.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, it's one and the same thing, only that dowry probably is in some communities, it's look like, you know, dowry as we put it, but in some other communities probably they'll look at it like just a bride price that you pay, and then from there you are allowed to proceed with, maybe if you want to organize a wedding, so you're allowed to proceed with that.
Okay, so in the modern day culture that we live in, is dowry still relevant?
No, I think that's a controversial issue right now.
Yes.
I would say, you know, it has lost its original meaning and purpose, because its original meaning and purpose was basically to unite the family, the two families, and that actually was the basis of everything. So that's why communities had to meet several times. You come, for example, like in the first month when you meet, so you start, you go to see the family. And to go to see the family, basically this is an introduction, but you don't just go alone. So you go with, you know, other people, maybe some, your peers, or maybe in some communities, you need to go with your dad or intimates of your dad, something like that. And then after that, where you need to go back again a second time for something else. And finally, by the time you're now allowed, you're given go ahead to marry, you've been like in a relationship for like 1 year.
Yeah.
Now, today, we basically meet in the university and we feel like we love each other.
Yeah, or we'll meet on Facebook.
Yeah, or on Facebook, actually, that's a reality.
Yes.
So we love each other, and therefore we don't consider any other thing. We just want to go ahead and express how much we love to each other. Now, when the issue of dowry comes, young people will not see the sense in it, especially if you're living in an urban kind of setup.
Yeah.
You will not see the sense in dowry paying. Basically, what will happen is you feel like this is a burden, because if anything, you love each other, you want to move on with your lives. So it's like a burden. And most young people actually look at it like a burden to some extent. And so it has lost that meaning. And because also it has been exaggerated in some communities or some families, whereby you see initially, if for example, you are to pay up 1 cow and maybe 2 goats and then a sheep or something else, or mira, like where I come from, if you have to give some mira.
Yes.
So at the end of it all, you realize once you have given that, I mean, it was a standard, like it's mira everywhere.
Yeah.
And now today, you realize that if it's 2 cow, I may decide that 1 cow will be 200,000 or 300,000. And that becomes a lot of money, you see, because, for example, if you're living in Nairobi, a gated place, ama umerent, so where will you take 20 cows? Where will you put them? So you basically translate that into money.
Into money, yes.
And when you translate into money, it is the parent to decide, or the kingsmen who are negotiating the dowry, to actually determine how much will 1 cow cost. And therefore, at the end of it all, you may realize you're paying a lot of money. And so a young person will get discouraged, and they'll look at it like, this is a commercial thing, so it's like I'm buying someone. And so that's why sometimes they decide. I've seen also places where young girls, those who are getting married, they have decided to pay the dowry for their spouse.
I was going to ask you that question.
I've seen that happening. Because what happens is they feel frustrated that this process is taking too long, and my boyfriend doesn't have a good job right now. He may not be able to sustain, you know, paying dowry. So I'm going to chip in. And finally, it may look like I'm marrying myself. Yeah. Because I've seen girls say like, I married myself. Especially when things do not work along the way, it feels like you married yourself. So I didn't marry you. Actually, you paid your bride price. So, you know, you married yourself. And so it becomes a big problem. So I think with the community today, maybe there are different ways of looking at it. Yeah. I have seen, for example, in the Western, maybe particularly some states or some families in America, in this case, or UK, I've seen where by 2 families meet. Of course, there is still dowry, but whatever it is that is given is actually, at the end of it all, it doesn't go with either of the families, given to the wife and the husband who are getting married. Oh. So like they are given as a gift what they contributed. Okay. Okay. And some other times it's actually both families contributing, like the family of the bride and the groom, they kind of contribute and say, how can we jumpstart our children as they begin life. And I think if we can look at it that way, it will be really, really very encouraging.
Okay.
Because now you and Jam started. You're not beginning from all the way whereby you have to struggle so much to buy even a seat, to rent a house and all that. But if we can come together as families, for example, if families are able, you can come together, buy a piece of land for them, then build a house for them, and then probably put them there, and then let them begin life.
Okay.
You know, that way it's actually very encouraging to even those who are getting married. I know there are so many marriages that have actually broken right now.
Yeah.
Not because there was a problem between the man and the wife, but simply because dowry was not paid.
Okay. I want to take you back to...
a young man feels like is disvalued by the father.
Okay. I want to take you back to what you said earlier, that sometimes you find the bride-to-be stepping in and paying the bride price because this young man has no money. And I've always wondered, is that wisdom? Haitafika siku moja mmekosana mpaka akuambie we hata mahari hata hukuweza kunilipia, nilijilipia mimi mwenyewe. Is there wisdom in that?
I think at that moment what is leading these two people is basically the love that they experience for each other. So they don't figure out oftentimes the consequences of that should something not work.
Yeah.
If everything works for them, it's okay, because I feel like I couldn't do it at that moment. And so you came in, and ultimately we were able to work together and support this new marriage that we want to establish. But then if something doesn't work along the way, things backfire, there are two perspectives. One, the lady might feel like you're treating me this way, and yet you did not pay dowry for me.
Yeah.
So it's like you're a useless man. But also, it can be also the other way, where a man feels like you need to get out. If anything, you paid for your dowry. So I did not marry you. I did not pay for you.
Yeah.
So you paid for yourself. Therefore, go ahead. You married yourself. You can go.
Wow.
And so it might backfire somewhere along the way.
Okay.
And I think it's essential that we find a way that doesn't pressurize either the bride or the groom.
Okay. I think sometimes one of the things that becomes a huge hurdle, especially now for Christians, is sometimes the culture surrounding this whole dowry ceremony. So you have the old traditional culture, you have the Christian life that I'm trying to live, and there's a conflict, or I'm assuming that is not the right thing to do. And I'm just wondering, how do you navigate through that? In fact, somebody's saying sometimes you're so ready, you want to go ahead with this, and then you're told, unajua baba yako hakulipia mama yako mahari. Kwa hivyo baba yako lazima alipe kwanza, ndio wewe uweze kulipa. And I'm thinking, okay, so how do you navigate through some of those cultural practices that we still hold on to, and you are a believer?
Okay, now I'll look at that from two perspectives. One is maybe the traditional one. Now, the reason why they would do that basically is to keep the families united, and see also it's important that if you want to marry and you want to pay dowry so that you can go ahead, it's important also for your dad to take responsibility. For example, if your dad did not pay dowry, you need to take that responsibility. But something I want to bring in also, remember initially in the traditional setup, it was the family that was paying the dowry, not the young man.
Yes.
It was the family, not the young man. So for them to be able to transition now to start marrying their children or marrying for their children, then it was essential for them also to take that responsibility that they're actually communicating to their children. So there was traditionally, I think there was a purpose for that. But when you look at it today, it is nonsensical for me. Because if you tell a young man not to go ahead and have a wedding in the church, and they are believers in this case, simply because the grandmother did not pay the dowry, and grandmother was not there, so it means, I mean, you have to pay for the dowry for the grandmother, then for the mother, then for you before you proceed with your wedding, and that does make a lot of sense, because we miss out on the grace that God disposes on those who marry, for example, in the church. We miss out on that grace. And again, you see, some of these traditional practices, especially like Christians, you have to be very careful what exactly happens there.
Yes.
Because some of these things are done in darkness, almost like in darkness, really. And you may not tell exactly their meaning. Because you're a young man, you're told, bring a goat. And then there are some very old wazes who come and slaughter them. And after slaughtering, there are some incantations or some words that they speak. And you realize this almost like another sacrifice. And we have one sacrifice of Jesus Christ, which was, the blood that is speaketh more than every other blood. You know? So when you make these other sacrifices, it's like you're already founding this new relationship, this new marriage, already on some rituals, some satanic rituals, kind of, which actually can be detrimental to the marriage. And I've seen that happening because I've heard many people say, I don't know whether you have, but at least for me, I've heard people say, when you marry in the church, your marriage will not last. I've had that conversation. And ultimately, when I did my own investigation and wanted to know why, and I realized partly, there are many other reasons, but for the purpose of this talk, I would say partly is because of the rituals that have been performed. Now you have already connected yourself, united yourself with the power of Jesus. And so there is that sense of conflict, the power of, that is coming from the marriage, the sacrament, or whatever you call it, and there's the power of the rituals that were performed. And so there is that sense of conflict, because spiritually we cannot be blinded really that that ritual is not against the commandment, first, particularly in this case, against the first commandment. So that's something that we need to investigate also and probably figure out. If you are doing a wedding, and this was I suggest, if you're the one who is preparing for the wedding and you want to pay the bride price, maybe if you can, go and buy, if you must slaughter, go and buy the goats and slaughter it yourself. If you don't slaughter it yourself, probably you come from Nairobi, so you've never slaughtered one. But then if you come from the village, call your friends, let them come and slaughter with you. Or you can call someone from the butchery. They can come and slaughter for you. But otherwise, if you call those wazes, they are likely to come and pronounce those ones because they do not know any other thing. So they will speak those incantations, will destroy the relationship thereafter. Or in some communities, I've also advised people, go and buy meat, the meat that you're cooking. Go and buy meat, come and cook and celebrate together. That's another way other than slaughtering. So it's important to understand what happens at the end of it all. Because sometimes also you're supposed to drink some stuff in some communities. And when you drink that stuff, then again, it's like you've really, really gone against the Christian belief system that you hold.
Wow. Imagine time goes so fast when you are having fun. I can't believe my time is almost up. I'll give you 1 minute to share your parting shot. But before you do, there's a friend of mine who we were having this kind of a similar discussion, and they were saying how, these young people wanted to get married. They didn't have enough. And what the lady did is the lady went back home and told her that this is where we are at. I know wazee are coming. I know Uncle so and so ndio anapenda kusukuma vitu. So you just know this young man is coming on this day with his people, and this is the match they have. Hapo ndio wako. And he was telling me they had all those things happening and they asked for so much, but when they were having the meal, the father talked to this other father and said, don't worry, those ones we were just saying for the sake of saying, but you give us what you have. We want to bless our children. We want them to have a strong marriage. We want to give them a good foundation. And I think those conversations are important. What's your parting shot for us today, Silas?
Yeah, it's interesting, actually, as you're saying, there are some parents who really understand, and they kind of, the bride and the groom, they kind of understand each other. They speak to their parents, and their parents are able to understand. Actually, that happened to me.
Me
because
too.
When I was marrying, I was just a young man and just finished university. I did not have a job really as such. So we went home to my wife's place and we negotiated for ourselves. We told the parent, this is what we have and this is what is happening with us. So kindly allow us to proceed and get a wedding in the church, and then we'll continue paying the dowry. And that worked very well. But finally, as I conclude, I think for me, what I would say is this is a very important topic that we need to keep going. We need to keep talking about it, because ultimately, at the end of it all, what you want is families that are strong, families that where a man and a woman love each other and they're able to coexist together in peace and in harmony. And so let us not pressurize them. Let us find a way of enabling them to stabilize. And then they can always come back home and say thank you in different ways, other than just giving them a certain quotation. And so it's like now they have to pay slowly by slowly, or they have to pay it all together. Actually, some people cannot allow you to go ahead unless you pay everything. So we need to support this new young family. because family is so important that it has to be founded on a very strong foundation. So we cannot begin a marriage on Denny. So it's like I'm paying slowly by slowly. So let us support the young family. And I believe with that, we will have more stable families.
Awesome. Silas, thank you for your time this morning. That was an enriching conversation. Like you said, yes, we need to keep having these conversations, and we will definitely look into that. My time is up for today for Mindshift Friday. I hope the conversation has been enriching to you and enlightening to you. Received quite a number of SMSs as
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.